In a colony that can contain more than 60,000 workers and up to several thousand drones, there is only one queen. That is why both the bees and the beekeeper agree in giving the queen bee the greatest importance. She is the mother of all the individuals in the colony. The workers only live a couple of weeks, and without their constant replacement, the family would disappear. The life of a new queen begins in an egg. This one has nothing special except that it is fertile and can produce both a queen and a worker. The production of a queen or a worker represents the two extremes in the potential of a fertilized egg. When incubated, a larva is born that can develop in one of two directions, that is, into a perfect queen or a perfect worker. The choice of this direction is in the hands of the suckler workers. It occurs very early in the life of the larvae and depends on the food it receives. Adequate feeding depends on the nurses. They require an abundance of pollen and nectar to be able to secrete the royal jelly, with which they must feed the offspring. One nurse can probably provide enough food for 2 worker larvae, but several nurses are needed to feed a single true larva. For Rodrigo Gonzalez, director of Apiculture Without Borders, to raise excellent queens, adequate larval nutrition is essential. Through the simple breeding of queen bees, we will be able to have our hives headed with young queens, whose vitality and drive surpasses queens of 2 or more years. Translating this into more productivity. Queen production is truly fascinating, which requires the breeder to have a great capacity for planning, observation, and execution, with great attention to detail. Many breeders have the great experience of having worked for many seasons alongside renowned beekeeping cabins. Thus, thanks to this enriching experience, they influenced our work system. We work with the Doolittle system, which we consider unsurpassed for us as the commercial breeding method for queen bees. There are many techniques and procedures in choosing mothers. For us, it was successful to choose the queen bees that 2 years ago were the best, and that in the last season their daughters headed the ranking of hives with excellent performances. We also look for the following characteristics: good winter and good spring takeoff, prolificacy, large number of offspring and good appearance of the nest, hygienic behavior, a low swarming tendency. During their use as providers of larvae for transfer, they are kept in breeding chambers, consisting of 9 frames and an internal Doolittle feeder. The handling is carried out by removing the squares until we find the queen, which we will put inside a technical basket, to which we have already introduced a preferably black square for the best visualization of the larvae, since they are pearly white. It is syruped, and so on the 5th day that box is full of newborn larvae, ideal for transferring. We use the same system with different mothers, of course, to raise drones in charge of mating with the virgin queens. Hive management in raising queen bees. We start spring using a starter. This management as a starter hive is one that gives us many results, and we know that there are others that are more popular. The system consists of a 4-frame core box where 2 kilos of young bees are shaken over 2 frames of pollen and honey. Without covering, the transfer is introduced into the 2 empty spaces. After 24 or 36 hours of confinement, the cells are removed and the bees are returned to their hive of origin. When the weather is more stable at the end of spring, we begin to use open starters that remain running until the end of the season. These starters are double-chamber hives which are divided a few hours before forming an open starter where the same result is obtained. Normally, acceptance ranges between 85% and 95%. The accepted cells go to the continuators for 9 more days. Continuer hives, also known as terminators. They are hives with a double brood chamber with both bodies divided with an exclusion grid. The queen remains at the bottom. The already accepted cells that come from the starters are introduced into the upper super. Through a combination of replacement and swarming instincts, the nurses feed the larvae, culminating the process with the capping of the cells. Once a week we upload brood. It refers to the fact of raising open brood. The presence of this brood is what attracts the nurses who will feed the cells, and in turn we will lower the already capped brood. 2 or 3 squares are enough. When honeydew occurs, they must be unblocked using squares with stamped wax or by placing half elevators. Otherwise they are blocked and the cells are covered with false honeycomb, making it difficult to manipulate them. At the beginning and end of the season it is the other way around. They are syruped so that they produce well-carved and quality cells. Mating of virgin queens. The fertilization of the queens is the main limiting factor of a hatchery. For those who want to start raising queen bees, we have on our channel several videos about the different nuclei and divided standard hives for the fertilization of queen bees that are located in the playlist called CRIADE Abages Reinas. Always look for methods and types of hives according to your budget, availability, and do not forget that failures are the management that will teach you future successes. Look for systems that are easy to populate, which allows us to quickly cage the queens. It works for us to use approximately 300 grams of bees and a mature royal cell. These small populations have no problem being able to carry out the muscular action that is framed in a courtship of bees that receive the queens and transmit the necessary energy through body temperature, making them perform the contraction and dilation movements of their abdomen. Also known as pressing movement, the sperm are pushed towards the spermatheca through the ductus, duct that joins the spermatheca with the middle oviduct and vagina. In this process, the temperature of the breeding nest, which must be 34 degrees, is of relevant importance, ensuring that they remain productive during the end of September until March. Each cage lasts 17 days. They are checked, and if there is laying and breeding, the queen is caged, and the cycle is resumed by introducing a cell again. The nuclei are distributed in the fertilization park in parallel rows about 2 meters apart, and within each row 1.5 meters from each other, thus achieving a fertilization level that averages 90%. The main factor to pay attention to is the good supply of mature drones. As we can see, to raise queens, a beekeeper does not need to be equipped with extraordinary technical conditions. It is enough to be constant, responsible, and feel true satisfaction for what you do. One more video of beekeeping without borders for beekeepers around the world.